We had hoped to have Shay Clear here now, and Shay is he's a funny lad because he can talk a mile a dozen, as you know, when you meet him on the street, and we've had some wonderful interviews, but he can also be then at the stroke, he's shy, you know. Now for all I know, he could be in the grass there walking around. I'm not sure. He could be behind us.
Not.
But lovely man, and I had hoped to talk to him because I had a great conversation with him, and it sort of sparked this idea that Delgany's at a crossroads.
Yes.
And it's a very, very busy crossroads with traffic increasing all the time.
Yeah.
And there is a feeling, and it happens all the time to every generation, that the Delgany we knew probably won't be here in 10 or 20 years' time.
No, certainly won't. You know, if you look at... I was just thinking back, actually, from Killincarry Cross, Paul, from Killincarry Cross at the roundabout of Killincarry Cross up to Delgany and the environs around Delgany village. Since I grew up in the 60s, right, I can count 25 estates that have come up. 25 estates.
Well, I've long
in that time, since the mid 60s. 25 estates. Now, how many? You know, I know some estates have only got, say, 10 or 12 houses, but other estates have quite a large number of houses.
I certainly wasn't even thinking about this, and generally with the guide, I'm wary of getting the banjo out, and because nostalgia is dangerous. It's a beautiful thing, but it's also dangerous. Yeah. But I've long stated that you can walk from Delgany to Greystones purely through housing estates. You can keep walking from. You don't have to take the roads anymore. You can just link them, and they're all joining hands. Yeah. And that's the thing, we kind of know that this area, Greystones, Delgany, hugely popular area to live in, and rightly so, but there's that danger, without sounding like, you know, the NIMBY thing, of the whole thing buckling, because just too many people in the boat.
People, the worry for me, like, you know, I've lived on this Bellevue Hill Road, and it's a narrow road, and if you think back again, the roads haven't been improved, really. There's still narrow roads, even right up. If you take the Delgany bus coming through the village, it still can't get by around that wall.
But the irony is, people would naturally, and I think possibly rightly, be annoyed if they said, well, let's just double the width of it. People just think, holy moly,
the problem is you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. In some parts, like in the coming into the village, you can't.
You can take all the gardens off these houses over here now. Well, these dirty big gardens over there. These feckers with their lovely gardens and little houses. What the hell they need that for?
As long as they give us a few million, that would be quite happy to.
But there is. I know that, and this is very sad to me now, because beautiful Mrs. Ludlow, I met her only about a week ago, and she'd gotten a notice about the fact that they are going to widen outside her house, which is right there on the main street. And
that's right.
You've got the old rectory tall wall on one side, and you've got a few houses on the other side.
That's right.
And she just sort of said out of the blue, you know, if I was younger, I'd be out of here.
Yeah.
And that's just shocking to me,
because
that family's been there, it seems, forever. And it used to be the post office, it's whatever it is, Plan 8 now, the architects or whatever. But that used to be, you know, the main place you'd go for.
Well, all the people from the village would go there every Friday morning.
But the idea she'd feel that way, that she would actually
go.
The
older people as well, the pensioners and all, come up for their pension and all from around the
Have you had that feeling at all? Now, you're pretty well, this is a lovely stretch of houses here, and you're sort of somewhat untouched, but now you're going to have, without a question, houses.
The two fields right opposite.
And this the old convent field.
The old convent field. It's going to be.
So has it entered your head at all about possibly moving?
It hasn't. No, I would never move. I love that. I would never move. You couldn't have got a better spot to live.
Well, you're squatting, so I don't think you should move.
Well, the thing is, the only thing that would bother me. I'm not objecting to the house or anything like that, but what bothers me is the narrowness of the road, and trying to get out the gate now will be a problem for us, because it's quite a narrow stretch, and they're putting a footpath apparently
down as far as Dooley's place, I think.
Village, so it's going to be quite difficult to get out of our gateways.
I know that'll be a very small detail probably for them in regard to, they possibly will be allowing more space. If they own this land on that side of the road, they're probably going to have to, by law, allow for what's going to go on traffic wise, but it is a constant worry, and there's some very, very good people in the village that have been very much at the forefront of trying to make sure that these decisions are not made lightly, and it's a bit of a hard struggle, because as we've mentioned, really, that this is a very lucrative part of the county for Wicklow County Council. This is their cash cow.
I suppose as well, looking back, you see, with less people in years gone by and small community, most people knew each other, and obviously as the estates come into being, and you'll get people coming from all different parts, so you sort of lose that kind of very, villagey type atmosphere.
Well,
it's not. That's what the sad part is. But you can't stop progress.
Well, that's it. Like I think, every generation feels that way. I'm sure my mom and dad and your parents probably felt a little bit was lost as they were growing up. That when they were kids, you went around on horses or whatever. Yes, and now they think, the cars are ruining the traffic, and so there's always that. You always have to get that in perspective. But the speed of change is so ferocious now, and the size of the change. It's not like we've got an extra pub in the town or there's an extra a housing estate. It's a sort of gold rush from the developer's point of view, but it creates a huge amount of pressure on this small little infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking back to that as well. We had the dispensary going back years ago down the bottom of the hill. We had the post office, which we don't have now. We've one less pub.
Yeah.
And yet there's a good few thousand more people living in the area.
It's echoed of.
So hopefully they'll open up something like that.
Well, certainly the business like the Wicklow Arms is going to reopen now, and there'll be the footfall for things like that to do well.
Yes.
But there's different stories there now. The pub culture itself is struggling. It's not like that's because of anything other than people's lifestyle has sort of become. You go for a coffee and then in the evening you get your cheap Aldi beer and you get your pajamas and binge watch. So it's a different world.
Now, really,
and even down the country where Castletown Bear and all that, even where the pub would be the main focal point for century. Now it's sort of even there is shifted where people are just spending more time isolated and happy enough in most cases.
Yeah.
Now I don't know whether you would think that we're in a field now, the convent field. In a year's time it'll be a very different site. Just behind us here or up behind us, Gortine Way, they've already brought the diggers in.
That's right.
That'll be very different. I'm just trying to imagine if there's a if there's a part of you who's almost getting emotionally ready for the fact that it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, well, when you again, you have all these lovely memories of you remember playing football in the field up the road and obviously they're probably the last two greenfield sites in the village.
Sure. Of any size, of any kind of
are gone now.
Right.
And what I was thinking about there recently was that think about, say, in another 40 years' time, those kids that will be growing up in the houses that are here will never have known all the facilities of playing and the games we played and all that. It's amazing, they won't know about
but I suppose that it's just playing a little bit of devil's advocate. It's trying to realise, well, their memories are going to be hopefully different, wonderful and beautiful. And the same way that we have it in the harbour in Greystones now, it's a very different place. But there are a generation of kids who have a huge amount of fun down there, are in their kayaks and they're doing all sorts of sports and all that in reality wasn't available to that generation, and I think our need and want as we get older for our childhood years to remain like that. That's it's like the music of that era. Everything about that era was the best.
It's never going to happen.
And it's not entirely false. It is sometimes it is a better life, but there's always that rose-tinted notion that this was
better.
And that what they've done now, let's get rid of electricity. It was the turning point that ruined everything.
And the electric cars are coming in and out. We'll be pushing them up the hill.
It is that thing that Delgany one-way system is going to be introduced now, just a trial period for a year.
Yeah,
that hopefully will help. But I know that Farley's and others are struggling with the idea there's no parking on the main street.
Yeah, that's going to be again
it's going to be tricky and when the convent arrives in, it's hopefully it is a movable idea that it's not going to just be set and we can't change it. According to Rory O'Hanlon, who's the town engineer, it's definitely a trial and they want to just see if it works and all the rest. But it did strike me coming up to meet you today. A friend of mine lives down in Kenmare, and it just, that to me now became, and it's still a beautiful place, but it is also kind of became like a hotspot for investors to buy properties and live there and have big houses and all that. And it kind of became a theme village. And I think that probably is if it not already, that's really the fate of Delgany. At the very best, it'll be maintained as a theme village, almost like a tourist kind of Disney World,
Like the problem would be, in my mind, it's no longer going to be a village.
Sure.
As we knew it.
Sure.
Like, to me, it's almost involved part of Greystones now.
So, there's definitely
I think what will happen in the end, you'll have Charles and you'll have Kilcool, you'll have Newtown. It'll all be one big area.
Sure.
It no longer will. You'll no longer have that kind of village
But there's always a branding thing, like whether it's your football team or whether it's a company trying to identify, make an identity for a car or whatever.
Yes.
I think there'll always be that strong notion that Delgany represents a certain kind of address and a certain kind of village.
I'd like to think that we'll be able to hold on to some part of our village life and feeling that you're in a village. I mean, like it's been such a beautiful place all these years, and so much to see in the village as well. Like,
in truth, all those who are buying into living here, that's what they're buying into, is the idea they live in a lovely little village. Whereas someone like Red Cross now still has a small, tiny kind of living quality and all that.
Right,
and Wicklow Town still has that good, the balance that Greystones used to have, where it still has that harbour, still has that feeling. I think people who live here would like it to be that way. So hopefully that will itself kind of create a certain kind of atmosphere where the neighbourly feeling is there.
Yeah.
But of course, you're suspicious too. Once money becomes involved in anything, whether it's a band or anything, it tends to sort of put it behind plexiglass, and it's no longer real.
That's true. All right. No, my wish would be that it will retain some resemblance of being the lovely village that we all knew.
We should bring back a mayor idea, like have a mayor like either yourself or Shay or somebody, just the character of the village could be reflected.
A good mayor now.
He would indeed. If Fido the dog is
yourself would do it.
But I do think that idea of a little bit of eccentricity, history is huge. But also it's to accept the change, because that's one thing that's kind of, I think is the easy sort of default button, is to sort of say, oh, this is dreadful, everything's dreadful, we should go back to the way it used to be. And it's trying to get the balance of holding on to the soul of it, we'll say, and accepting that.
I fully accept that people have to have places to live, and it's good to see, like people moving in and making progress in a place. But you just want to keep that feeling of a village. Would be nice. That's what I would like to see.
Well, you were saying that before the cameras roll, once there's nobody from Newtown, you're okay.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, maybe somewhere else. I forget. It sounded like Newtown. I'll find out what it was exactly, but it sounded like Newtown to me. You were spitting at the time, so it's hard to tell. The funny thing is, when I met you the other day too, now, it was funny because you were talking about the fact that, you would have lived a life where you said yourself, you weren't into the druggy scene, you weren't into all the hippie stuff and all that, and you would be offered a little bit of leaf,
on your hair for the hippie stuff.
But you'd be I just found it very funny. Here you are, like walking down the street. We won't say who it was, but they offer you a little bit of leaf to blow your mind. And then I was up the road there, and I realised there's like people have leaf blowers now. That's the change now. It's gone from blowing your mind with a bit of leaf to now people have leaf blowers.
Right. It's just my own son does blowing leaves on the golf course.
There you go.
They have blown. They use it for getting all the leaves off the golf course even nowadays.
But isn't the same?
But they're not smoking it. That's the only.
Right. Who knows? That could be a bong at night. But that feeling too, that as I said, every generation feels a little bit like they're fighting against progress and all that. I really do believe people like yourself and Shay and a good few others, that the sense of what Delgany means, and I have brothers living abroad and you've got family all over there, but there's still that feeling of and it's a lot of it's good memories and all that, but there's still that
they love
you can taste
to come
it
back. And you can't erase the memories that we have, which is great. But they still love that feeling of coming back.
But I think that retains, hopefully, what is, what we want to hold on to, and what we hope will stay. And I think as long as you believe in Santa, Santa's real. There's
definitely. And hopefully, as I said, like all in all, that the people that move in to the area will enjoy the same things that we had, and the improvements, along the way with the electric cars and all. It should be greener. What we're all looking for.
Well, there's some things that are going to be better for sure, and in the same way that the harbour went electric, and some things are a lot better because of it. But of course, there are things that are gone that you'd love to be still in your life, whether it be a bus shelter to make out in, or the water down there was so bad you could kill a man just holding him onto the water for 2 minutes.
The bus shelter.
That's what I'm taking, the bus shelter. Oh man, many a child was conceived there. So I suppose the thing is that I suppose one of the reasons, and the main reason I was sort of wanted to talk to you, is that it's very, very easy to be kind of down about the changes, but it's just trying to hold on to. It's really about the people, and it is about hopefully, and I think the developers and Wicklow County Council do recognise the beauty of a lot of what's around here, and that they have to try their best to maintain that. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying they'll do it. I'm not saying that it'll, that everybody's, being a good person here, because there are some scumbags involved too. Oh, yeah, but I do have hope that
get the
just
odd
by
bad apple everywhere.
But I do have hope that there's a general, everybody's looking the same way. They all want to have a happy home, a warm bed, and a bit of fun and all that. So I'd be optimistic. But I know that it's a kind of, I won't call it a long shot, but it's just given the evidence.
Yeah,
I
know. Well, as I said, like, all we can do is hope, I suppose, like, that they will do it justice.
And as I said, we give a shout out to those like Paddy and Alice O'Donnell, who are genuinely fighting, for those simple things like less houses, and when it might be just a bit too much, where they're planning like hundreds and all these things, which are sort of ugly in a way, having to do, and they don't exactly inspire ballads, but they are very, very important.
And the problem is you're never going to win with everybody anyhow.
Sure.
There's always going to be objections and people that want different things. So we have to, I suppose. It's getting a compromise for everyone.
Yeah. So just on the Newtown front, what is it about Newtown you don't like?
I have nothing against Newtown. My family comes from Newtown.
That's what it is. I knew it. It's always the family connection. That's what you don't want them here.